Anyway, the grey listing is around the corner. You were on this way before anyone else. We made a video about this 3 months ago. Um,
Yeah,
I think people don't really understand what it means. I think you should just reiterate exactly what the point of a grey listing means for the South African economy and mostly for South African people, because people just don't seem to understand it, and I think they're missing out.
yeah. Do you remember when I said to you, let's do an article, let's do a story on the grey listing? You're like, no, that's so boring. Like, who wants to do that? And that was like freaking months ago. I think we actually pushed the story like 2 weeks into advance because we just kept having more interesting stories. But it's probably one of the most relevant things to happen to South Africa this year, and it's going to go by unnoticed until all your bank accounts are pretty much in a state where you can't use them abroad. That is. So if you're
Yeah,
looking to immigrate, that's going to suck. Um, so what does grey listing effectively mean? It basically means that all South African banks are deemed to be, let's just say, fraudulent. They look at South African banks and go, these guys have no control in place to stop financial crime. So we need to scrutinize every little thing that goes on in and out of a South African bank because it may be subject to fraud. So what that means is that it delays significantly any payment that you might make to abroad or from abroad. So you get money from abroad or you pay a supplier abroad. They're just going to want to know everything, including your bra size. So
yeah,
it's just going,
yeah.
it's just going to take you a really long time to do stuff.
Just
So
on,
much so.
just on a small thing, like I know three people who immigrated in the past 5 years, and they've financially immigrated, and they want to open bank accounts in France or Portugal or something like that. As soon as you say I'm from South Africa, the paperwork just is like 10 times more than anywhere else in the
Yeah.
world because it's already.
And
I think
it's
I
going
think
to
the
get
grey
bigger, yeah.
listings almost already baked into the system. Go
Mm.
overseas, try open a bank account as a South African for a business you're going to start. Not easy in the slightest. Really not
No.
easy.
So where the actual problem is going to come in the world of reality, without being sarcastic about it, where the actual problem is going to come in is that what's going to end up happening is you're going to want to pay a supplier. That supplier is going to ask you for a lot of details, and it could be something like the shareholding certificates of your company. But your shareholders could be like numerous, man. You could have like 100 shareholders. And if you're on the stock exchange, and this is one of the big criticisms that has happened, then your shareholders, in some respects, could even be, like hedge funds. They have millions of subscribers. You can't pull out every RDE form for all of these people
No.
just so that you can say, well, here you go. This is all my beneficiaries, and these are the people whose money I'm using on their behalf. It could be that you've got a company with like three other companies that own that company, and each of those companies have like 5 shareholders each. That's like 15 sets of documentation that you need to get. Some of which those companies might not be too keen to give because maybe it's their kids, for example, and their kids like 10. So this is the type of barriers it's going to pit. And what it's ultimately going to mean is that if you have the ability to bank with someone else and do business with another country, you might just go, oh, fuck it.
Yeah.
South Africa is a bit of a ball ache. I don't really want to go through all of that. So India, I suppose.
Yeah. Don't worry, it's coming. And India's more based anyway, so you should go there.
They said today, the official news came out that the Treasury is saying it's 85% chance of being grey listed. They think that it's so far to the top of being grey
Oh,
listed.
yeah.
They're putting things in place. But then the other things that's been put in place is like they're putting acts of parliament in place to try to stop it from happening. And those acts are so draconian. And
Yes.
the ANC, the ANC love this idea of like never let a crisis go to waste. Might get grey listed. Cool. What type of draconian crap could we do to subjugate our people and steal their shit?
Terrorism laws. Have you seen that act? Basically, it's so
Absolutely.
broad. Any NGO needs to be registered with the state, and you could be banned, fined, imprisoned for having propaganda against the state or against state policies. So AfriForum, Solidarity, IRR, they all have to register with the state now. And if they produce any terrorism material, which could be anything, they will be
Could be
banned.
like, we don't like the state because
So,
they're stealing our money and not providing services. Well, that sounds like terrorism to me. So off to the
yeah.
gulag you go.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
So
when you actually speak to the OECD and the people who are saying why the grey listing will happen, it's not because of the lack of laws, it's because of the lack of implementation of the law. As always, you can have an MPA, but if it does fuck all, does it really exist? Same with
and
anything.
that actually is the problem with the grey listing. Even when you look at all the international stuff, they're not going, you know what you need? More laws. They're actually saying, you know what you need? to prosecute some fuckers for doing some
Yeah.
wrong stuff. That's it. That's the big thing. We've got KYC, which means know your customer. We've got all the kind of the requirements that everybody else has in the world to know who you're dealing with. But we never prosecute anybody. You know, do you remember the big instigators of the July riots? What, there were like 12 instigators. Like, and how many of them have been prosecuted? Oh
No,
wait, none.
no, but they weren't the instigators. They had like one tweet, like, "Oh yeah, burn it down." Oh, there we go, terrorism, terrorism. And the magistrate's like, "Oh fuck off, 2000 fine." Off you go. Off
Do
you go.
you know what I mean? And that's where it becomes the joke. So it's the same thing now going with all this terrorism bullshit. They're like, you know, you don't really have good control over it. And they're like, oh, I know what I could do. Why don't we make it so that anybody who doesn't like the ANC, you know, because we know you don't like the ANC, why don't we make it that the minute you say, oof, ANC is a puss, then they go, yeah, that's terrorism. And then off to the gulag you go.